What's up, everybody? This is Zal here from Geek Paradise Entertainment, and I'm once again joined by Bashar. Say hi.
Good evening slash morning.
So we're back here again. We're gonna be talking about Arrowverse this time, talking about the big crossover event that happened this year, which happened this past week, and it is the Crisis on Earth X event. So, uh,
hmm
first of all, just the most obvious difference between this year's and last year's is that it was actually 4 episodes instead of just 3. Even though last year
hmm
they called it a 4 night crossover, but let's be real, the Supergirl episode added nothing to the crossover because it wasn't a
Yeah,
crossover episode. The
ex-
last,
except at the very end,
well, yeah,
and
and that was
and
the
and
clip in the Flash too. Like they replayed that same clip in the Flash. So if you missed the Supergirl episode last year, you didn't miss anything.
yeah, and there's also the fact that in last year's crossover, one thing you can notice is that each episode was focused on that particular show. For example, the Flash had a lot of focus on the Flash. Arrow, most notably because it was the
Exactly.
100th episode,
Yeah,
focused a lot on the Arrow characters. The Legends focused on Legends.
which is
And this
something.
year,
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
this year you could practically consider Crisis on Earth X like one show in total.
Exactly. I think
You,
that's something they noticed last year is that people who wanted to watch the crossover had to be caught up on the shows so they understand what's going on. But
Mhm.
this year you didn't really have to be because
to be fair, you kind of did, so you could get most of the context of what's happening.
well, right. But if you weren't,
Otherwise, you just been like, okay, what's going on? They have this kind of wedding. What's with these different Earths? I don't understand this concept. Why are these two people suddenly sleeping with each other? It's just like what?
well, yeah, it's like smaller things like that. But I mean, like last year's Arrow episode, for example, was the 100th episode, and if you weren't caught up on Arrow, you had no clue what the fuck was going on. But at least
Yeah, exactly.
this year you can at least kind of like piece things together. Like if you were just
hmm
watching the Flash and you wanted to watch the crossover, you didn't need to be caught up on everything to watch it.
Yeah.
Like and if the same thing if you're just watching Arrow, you could watch a crossover. I mean, you're right. There are things that you need to watch the show to understand. Like what's the deal with Alex Danvers? Like why is she upset? What because of Maggie, of course, like we know because we watch the show. Or someone
Yeah,
who doesn't watch the show, like
all the stuff leading up into that point, and why they're not completely like watted out by the whole Nazis from another world. Because like, let's assume that nobody has ever watched any of the shows previously up until that point. During that time, they faced off against assassins, aliens, alternate versions of themselves being evil, speedsters from the past, present, and future, and like
basically.
what have you, everything. So alternate dimension Nazis, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like throwing them for a loop, but they're not gonna be completely like frozen and complete like dumbfounded shock.
Right.
They actually react very fast. So if anybody's gonna be watching this for the first time, they're like, okay, they took those sudden Nazi army out of nowhere kind of well, all things considered.
Right? They're like, oh look, Nazis. All right, let's fuck them up.
Exactly.
Is there like we
Like,
last year was Aliens, so this is kind of more tame. I would say this is kind of more tame than Aliens, but at the same time,
why?
it's like worse because it's like evil versions of themselves that are Nazis.
It's not only that, it's like I wouldn't call this tame at all if you like if it's Nazis, because aliens is kind of like you don't really know much about them, which is kind of its own form of it's kind of scary in its own way. But Nazis, we already know what they do in history, but their presence in history, and it's not been very pleasant. So the fact that there's alternate version Nazis, especially that they come from an Earth which is already quote unquote Nazified. I'm saying quote unquote because of later discussions that we're going to go into. It raises all sorts of like when you think about it, the more you think about it, the worse it gets. Like there's an entire world that's been Nazified. What happened to everybody on that Earth? And suddenly they're able to cross over into other worlds, etc., etc. Like you piece together the puzzle.
Right. Well, yeah, you do make a point that like aliens. Well, the thing with the aliens last year is that because they were aliens and weren't characters we were really familiar with, the threat was
Mm-hmm.
more like, oh, it's a otherworldly danger that's gonna destroy our world. It wasn't really like something like their motivations were like pretty standard, you know? It was
Yeah,
like
but this one it's much more like it's it's kind of scarier in a way because it's already happened in history. Like
right.
it's that close to reality.
And
Like
another
that whole
yeah,
live experimentation they were gonna do. This is shit that they actually did, as far as
right.
I can tell.
Yeah, yeah, that's the Angels of Death. That's what they did. And
Yeah,
the camps.
what's it called? Here's an interesting fun fact. Joseph Mengele, the what's it called? The Angel of Death. The only reason he's even a scientist in the first place was because he was a Nazi. His thesis was such rubbish that even like Nazi scientists were like, "This is complete nonsense. This is biologically it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Scientifically it doesn't make any sense. It literally has no point being anywhere. Why are we even having this guy around?" So obviously he did what any scientist would do and started cutting people up.
then that's just the natural next step.
Oy.
Oh my god, but yeah.
Yeah. The more you research, the more you look into this stuff, the crazier it is. It's like you, there's some shit you can't make up. Basically, that's it.
Right, so it was a lot of inspiration they could take from for this crossover, but what sets it apart too is that the villains, since they're evil versions of the people that we've known and followed their stories for years, it's kind of like
Yeah,
more
I'll,
personal.
I'll,
It makes
yeah.
it more
I'll be very
personal.
honest. I'll be very honest. Well, I'm not gonna say spoiler because if you didn't watch the crossover, you have no business watching this video.
Right.
It kind of sucks that what's it called? Evil Oliver and Evil Kara are dead because there's so much potential for them to show up later on or something.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping they would keep them around for a future bigger
Yeah,
injustice type thing.
but how exactly are you gonna keep them around? I have no idea how plot wise it will work in this particular crossover without
They
it
could
being like
imprison them.
okay, there's this
Red Sun
they
prison for Kara, normal prison for
dude,
Gulliver.
you do realize that if Oliver and Barry are gonna break their no kill rule for Nazi mooks, you think they're going to leave these top guys alive?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm not saying like as characters, as characters, they did the right thing. But I mean, like, the show itself, they could have kept them
Mm.
around for longer. For maybe like another future crossover event with them coming back with full blown injustice. Like maybe Earth X Kara gets in contact with Earth X Superman.
I don't think there's an
And
Earth X Superman.
well, I mean, if there was, you know what I mean. I'm just saying.
Yeah, like again, there's a lot of questions involving Earth X in the first place, which we're gonna dissect in this video.
Yeah, yeah, lots of it doesn't make sense. And it's really funny that the whole thing the whole thing happened because of guess who? Barthon from Earth 1
So,
again.
I have
Again.
no clue what he's doing. I have no idea what he's on about. I honestly don't get like. I have no idea how he even made it there. I have no idea what he's thinking. Talk about
Well, he
how
made
he's
it
even
there because
existing.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
how he exists. He himself says, "I have no idea. I just do." Now shut up and watch.
Well, no, he
Like
said
it
that
kind
the
of.
reason was time travel stuff
Yeah,
because
but
of
like
him being a time traveler. There's versions of him in the past, present, future that all know about the other versions of him.
yeah. Well, I think at this point the show writers have just stopped giving a shit.
I mean, I thought that they did that 2 seasons ago. What?
2 seasons ago.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, just a long time ago, like, they didn't seem like they gave a shit about time travel for a while, especially with the whole Savitar
I
thing.
know, but this was the I know, but you're the look. If you have something broken, you don't break it further
I mean, it's
by
already
saying, "Well,
broken.
it's broken. There's nothing we can do about it."
It's already
Try and
broken.
fix the thing.
Might as well have fun with it since it's broken.
Yeah, exactly. It's just ridiculous. Like you have a broken down car, and like, okay, well, the engine's screwed. Let's just flatten the tires. That's not how it works.
Might as well throw the whole thing off a bridge.
You might as well just do that too.
But I mean, the explanation they gave was kind of like not very strong, but
They didn't give an explanation. Let's be
yeah,
real. They didn't give an
yeah,
explanation. They didn't give anything.
yeah. But if you think about it in terms of like it's just a comic book time traveler with super speed powers who, when he dies, technically goes back to the Speed Force because he's a speedster, so he doesn't like go away. He's still around somewhere. Like every speedster who's died is in the Speed Force. He might
This
have
is a
figured out a
problem.
way to get out, or it could have been like one of the versions of him that found out that his other versions are dead, so he doesn't want to follow that same path. Or, there's a million ways they could explain it with the whole time travel
Alfred,
bullshit.
Alfred,
No, I'm
Alfred.
with you. I understand that it's dumb.
This is a lesson that Marvel learned and that DC has yet to learn with their movies. The comics as a media are supposed to be separate from whatever visual media you're trying to apply on the TV. The fact that I couldn't understand half of what you just said right now probably just is like Exhibit A of this scenario. Okay,
Yeah.
like
Well, they still should base it off the
comic
comics.
book is something. What?
They still should base it off the comics. I mean, they're basing the characters of the comics. The ideas come out of the comics too, but you're right. What Marvel does is make it more grounded
Yeah,
in a way,
exactly.
and has
It
rules
makes it
for it.
much more grounded. Like there's so many things they change around, but it changes around in a way that we can relate to in real life, in a way that makes sense. If you're trying to create, if you're trying to recreate the comics as is, I might as well just go read the comics. Like,
Well,
what's
I
the
mean,
point of the movie?
the point is having a live action version of it, so it's more spectacular. You don't have to read the
I guess
comics.
I can see the merit in that, but
Audio and visual.
but as a person who likes movies on a general basis, I it's kind of disconcerting. So I don't know. I guess it's a perspective. I guess it's a personal thing, but
Right, yeah. Like for me personally, like I just chalk it up to like, oh, this is just the way that they're trying to explain it based on other established time travel rules that don't really make sense in this case, but if you just don't think about it, they kind of do. It's like not a good explanation or a
yeah,
good defense, but it's whatever.
it's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those things where don't think about it.
Right, it's
That's
whatever.
basically it.
A version of him still exists, and he knows about what happened to all his other versions, and now he's wearing Harrison Wells' face again because I guess they couldn't get the actor, and
Yeah,
wanted Tom Cavanaugh
yeah,
to do him again, which I'm personally okay with because I really like Tom Cavanaugh's version of Reverse Flash. So this was for me personally. I enjoyed everything about the Reverse Flash coming back, and I called it. I called it. I said they were gonna bring back Eobard Thawne somehow in this season of these TV shows, either in the Legends or Flash, especially Flash. Somehow he's gonna return, and he came back. What I don't understand though is why did Barry let him leave at the end? That's something
because
that I'm
be,
like confused about. Like he could have imprisoned him somewhere. He could have thrown him back in the Speed Force. He could have done many
well,
things
if
with him.
what yeah, but well, if you throw him into prison, then you remember what happened to Cisco in season 2.
Well,
The whole
yeah,
time paradox stuff, which is really really stupid. Bro. Whatever.
yeah, but
As an excuse to keep the guy on, it does its job.
I just don't understand Barry's thinking at that point. Like, I don't know what that's another thing. It's like character versus showrunner. It's like showrunner, I understand from their point of view. Like, we've already killed this guy twice. Like, there's no point in killing him again or imprisoning him. So let's just let him leave. But why would Barry, as a character, allow him to leave like that and even tell him go? Like, he didn't even like just do his usual thing where he's powerless and just the enemy gets advantage of him. Like he just straight up told him leave, which I don't understand from the character's perspective.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and wouldn't Eobard just go back and kill all the heroes and end this very quickly?
well, he can't do
I mean,
that.
I have no idea why he actually just does what Barry tells him to do and leaves.
Yeah,
You're a bad guy with no morals. You made it very clear in this crossover, if not in all the other seasons of every other show. Why
right.
would you suddenly want to go? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he saw that he was outnumbered and the Flash was a lot stronger and faster because he is.
He's faster than Superman. He's faster than the Flash. It doesn't matter how much numbers there
No,
are.
no,
He can
no,
just
no, no.
wipe them out.
No, no, no. Reverse Flash isn't faster than the Flash, especially not right now. I don't think he's faster than Barry. Especially now, dude. After he came out the Speed Force, all faster and stronger and shit. I don't. I
Oh,
disagree. I
That's
disagree. Yeah,
that's
I don't think
true.
Eobard is faster than him, and that's
That's
probably
true.
why he wanted to leave. Like, I mean, that's just what I'm thinking of. Like, if there was a justification, he probably saw that like, oh, Barry's a lot faster now. I'm no match for him right now, so the best option for me is to take his advice and just leave. And the rest of my team is fucked anyway, so it doesn't matter
Yeah,
because they were,
yeah. It's a shame.
at that point.
It's a shame they didn't do that in the first place, but okay.
Yeah, we didn't do it.
It's a shame that Reverse Flash didn't do that before.
Didn't do what before?
as in bugger off from Flash. You know, I've never like honestly, I have never understood Eobard's motives as a character because that guy is a brilliant genius. He could have solved cancer or like taken mankind to the stars. He spends his effort and time exacting it on this kid who didn't even know he was responsible for any of it.
Well,
It's just
yeah,
really
right
stupid.
now, but he will be. Well, that's his whole story arc is that he was a fan of the Flash, came back in time, tried to, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery type shit, where he tried to become Barry Allen, got found out, he found out that Barry Allen was supposed to kill him in the future, got mad and then became his villain. And then he tried to kill him and realized if I kill him, I don't exist anymore, or at least I don't exist as Reverse Flash anymore. Because that's his motivation to become Reverse Flash. So now he's trying to find a way, like his entire arc as a character is to find a way to eliminate Barry in a way that doesn't change his own destiny or course of his own
Yeah, but if
timeline.
you kill Barry, it doesn't matter. You're still going to get affected by that time loop.
That's exactly
By
what he's trying to figure out a way around. That's his whole character motive. But I mean, that's not what his motive was in the crossover, but that's just his motive as a character. Is to try and make it so that Barry doesn't exist, but he does. Or at least Barry's out of the picture, but he's not. Because if Barry's out of the picture at any point in his lifetime, I don't think, yeah, like at least at any point before he does certain things, then that affect Eobard in the future, Eobard doesn't become the Reverse Flash, or he ceases to exist. So that's his whole dilemma as a villain. It's like I can't kill my enemy because then I die, or I disappear, or I cease to exist. You know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is a cool story. Like in the comic books, they do it in a really cool way, and in the TV show, they even did it in a pretty interesting way. But it's weird that he did this whole thing with Earth X, like not really like part of his character arc, I guess.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the positives? Because here's the thing: we're probably gonna have a lot more negative stuff to say than positive stuff, but that's just for critique purposes
Right.
more than anything else. Like, doesn't
Yeah.
mean like it sucked. It
Right.
was
Right.
good. It was fun, but obviously there's gonna be a lot of commentary about a lot of things that doesn't make sense. That would elicit more discussion than anything else. So
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it wasn't really lots of negatives, just like nitpicky stuff and like negatives here and there, but like yeah, just some
yeah, well,
things that it feels like they didn't have enough time to like reshoot a certain scene, or they didn't feel like they were like tight on schedule, or just wanted to do things for fan service. But
hmm
like the whole Reverse Flash stuff that doesn't really have a good explanation. But yeah, we've dwelled on that
but
long enough, so let's get into some
yeah.
positives. What were the positives for you?
Okay. They did promise that this was going to be a lot more personal, and they really nailed it. They did a very good job of like having some serious emotional impact and personal, like putting the heroes in actual danger for once, you know,
Right.
and like really enforcing that they're mostly mortal and anything could happen to them. So like when in the situations where they almost get hurt or almost die, you could kind of feel the tension there. You could kind of feel like, oh shit, this is actually gonna happen, or you know it's not gonna happen, but the feeling like the build up towards that part still feels real enough.
Right. And I mean, it's not like they held back completely. Like there was a death in the main cast, which
Rest in peace. It was a stupid death, but
which you called. You called
I
it.
called it. Honestly, the first episode practically screamed it. It was throwing that stuff with neon light, neon signs, and fireworks in our face, with
What?
an extra asterisk saying, "If you don't see this coming, I don't know what to tell you."
Well, why? Why do you think I was saying that in the first episode?
Because that's when Stein was talking about going back to his family.
Well,
That's
yeah,
usually a red flag for a character death.
but like in a TV show like this, I didn't really expect him to go with a death. I just thought they would go with a way to write him out of the show that's like, oh, he lost his powers, or oh, he figured out a way to put the power in Jax, and now he's gone. He's off to take care of his family. Feel good stuff, happy ending stuff. But like,
It would be nice, but considering what they were up against, I wouldn't be surprised if like they actually went ahead and said, you know what, let's def it up a bit.
well, I mean, yeah, that's what they ended up doing. Yeah, I guess a big positive thing about this, which was also like, it's not really a negative. It's just like something that I didn't personally want to happen was that there was a lot of emotional impact. There was the death of Martin Stein, the second half of Firestorm. We've seen him since, geez, like
Mhm.
season one of The Flash, and
Yep.
for like basically like 3 years we've had this character on The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, and
Yeah,
now
but to
he
be,
died.
I'll be honest. They wrote him off in a really dumb way.
Really? Do you think it was dumb? Well, I think it was dumb. Well, the only reason I'd see it being dumb is that like the only the only fucking Nazis with guns who had decent aim were the ones that shot him. Everyone else was
Yeah,
missing point blank shots. I'm like, what the fuck is
yeah.
this?
I would ramble on that, but I'm saving it for my upcoming big discussion regarding the actual construction of the Nazis, which is one of the big negative points for me in that episode. But okay,
Right.
we'll move on. We'll leave that for when it happens because there's a lot of stuff I gotta comment about, especially about the world building, about the quote unquote lore building, about the showcasing the Nazis. I'm not trying to say showcase them positively because otherwise, like that would elicit already enough controversy. But I'm just saying that the way they portrayed the Nazis in here is kind of well. There was a lot of points that actually just made me laugh more than anything else. So.
Are you talking about like historical accuracy? Well, I wouldn't go in this looking for any kind of historical
Historical
accuracy.
accuracy. No, here's the thing: historical accuracy is already thrown out the window at this point because A, it's alternate history. B, it's
Absolutely.
alternate Earth.
Right.
Like you don't get more alternate than that. Now we could maybe like discuss few points of that, but it's not a big deal because like I just got an idea for something that's possible, but because the show will probably not elaborate on that, we can only go with it as an assumption. So again, we'll get to that when we get to that. Right now, let's just stick to the positive points, which was very good job on the emotional impact. They did a very good job of
Like,
showcasing the motives of the villains.
right. And I mean, like, just a quick thing about Martin Stein's death. Like, you think it was done in a dumb way? I honestly like. Besides the way he was killed, like just him dying and like his final words to Jackson and everything, man. I'm not gonna lie, man. I cried a lot when that happened. Like I really liked the
Yeah,
character and his
that
relationship with
that
Jax,
that
especially.
was very well. Yeah, that was very
Yeah.
well done emotionally. I know. I'm just saying it was dumb in the sense that he ran out into the open. That's something you're never supposed to do.
Yeah. I was like, dude, come on, just sit down. Like, okay. First of all, why the fuck did they split up so they can do things 10 feet apart from each other? They could have just stayed
It,
Firestorm, gone to do the one thing, flew over to the other side, done the other thing, boom, boom, done. It's not like they had to
exactly.
do something in sync or at the exact same moment that they had to be separate like that. As soon as they separated, I'm like, oh, here it comes. Fucking
Yep.
Martin Stein's gonna die. And then he gets shot once. I'm like, okay, that's it. He gets up, gets shot again. I'm like, bruh, sit down. Like, stay down. I'm like, what are you doing?
Play dead or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, play dead. That's what you're supposed to do. Like, if you get shot, like, and you're not dead, you're supposed to play dead. Because if you're not dead, they're gonna fucking execute you and shit. Like, dude, he could have stayed down, hid behind something, waited for Jackson to just run over and firestorm them away. But oh
I
my
think it's
god, man.
particularly. I think it's really, in a way, it's kind of clever because Stein is Jewish, so it's just reinforcing the whole.
Oh yeah, it
Like
adds to the theme of
context wise, if you think about it, it's like, huh, okay. So you'd also see like why Felicity, for example, when Harrison was talking about Earth X, she was actually physically very disturbed, which makes
right.
sense because she's also Jewish.
I like all the digs they had on current Nazis too. With they were like, "Oh God, make America Aryan again," and then someone else was like, "It was never that way," and it's like that's cool. That was clever. Like they were trying to dig
Yeah,
at the current political status in a way that wasn't
yeah,
too in your face.
especially all the talk about punching Nazis.
Yeah, yeah.
Even whatever one's opinions on it would be in today's current climate, back in if we're talking about like actual National Socialist German Workers' Parties, soldiers, and what's it called? Especially alternate versions that have conquered the world, coming in from another Earth. I think we can make an exception.
Well, yeah. I mean, I personally see no Nazis as being off limits. If you think that the genocide of other races is something that's on your agenda, then I personally think you deserve to get punched. But not to get into that right now, because this is not what we're talking about. I
Yeah,
like the
exactly.
subtle hints, like the subtle way that they dug at the current political status and the current
Yeah,
political climate.
it's something a lot of shows are tackling in a way. Some of
Oh
it are
yeah,
doing in very subtle ways, like Man in the High Castle, and others are doing it in more overt ways, like American Horror Story's newest season.
Right, yeah, yeah. Like the way they did it wasn't as in your face as hashtag feminism, but it was still there in a way that if you're at least familiar, you understood what was going on, and I like that. And I personally agree with everything they said. I mean, fuck Nazis, obviously. Like, I don't think anybody would disagree. But anyway, and also at the end when you saw them bury Stein, he had like the Star of David on his casket. So like
Yeah.
you said, yeah, in context and like to strengthen the theme of what was going on, his death was appropriate. But I man, I cried so much when he died too. Like I'll be honest, man. And then when Jax went back to tell his wife and his daughter, man, I was like,
That
God,
part was that part
oh
was
my
actually
God.
more sad than his actual death. I'll be very honest
Well, no,
because
not at his yeah, like not his death, like his last words with Jackson, like I said, and also like his Jackson's informing the rest of his family, like that
yeah, yeah,
part, like when he actually passed away, not when he got shot. I was mad when he got shot and annoyed, but then when he actually like told Jackson like, you have to give me this formula that Cisco made, that you know, Gideon synthesized to do this and that, you know, to like remove my powers, but make it so our link is separated. You know, when he was basically asking Jackson to mercifully kill him, to like mercy kill him, I was like, no, and you know, like I just, man, the tears were flowing, and yeah, and then obviously afterwards when he went over, like they stopped, and then when he went over to see his Stein's wife, I was like, oh, here they come again. Here comes round two.
here comes the flood works again.
Yep, round two. It was just, yeah, it was just really touching, really emotional scene. Just, yeah, they weren't lying when they said they were gonna up it with the emotional aspect of this episode, of the crossover. I mean, because last year didn't really have anything big happen,
Yeah.
but this year, yeah, that was pretty big. I'm interested to see what happens with Jackson's
The next
character.
series. One thing that really bothers me about Stein's death is that didn't Gideon revive a dead Sarah at some point in the last season?
Was she dead?
Yeah, she died. Like Rip broke her neck and she was like practically dead. And Gideon was able to save her at the last second.
Rip broke her neck. Remind me, what part of last season are we talking about?
Season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow.
Right. What part? Like, what was happening around that time?
That was when Rip was brainwashed by the Legion of Doom.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. When they first brought him in, and yeah, okay, I remember now. I remember. Well, I guess the explanation for that could be that her body is a lot younger and healthier, and also she's been revived with the Lazarus pit, so she has some magic in her, kind of. And Stein is like super
Uh,
old. Stein is super old, and his vitality is kind of gone, and he was shot twice, and he was bleeding a lot. Like before they even took him to Gideon, he was bleeding a lot, so it was his insides were probably all fucked up. I mean, eh, that is a good point to bring up. I actually didn't think about that. Um, yeah, I did think it was weird that Gideon wasn't able to save him like at all. Like Gideon's basically saved people from certain death before, but not this time, I guess. I think their explanation in the show is because he is old and his body's basically deteriorating.
yeah,
Um,
but they never actually gave an explanation in the show. That's the problem.
right. I don't know. Yeah, that I think they just wanted to kill him and stick with the death because I mean he is, as an actor, he is leaving the show for the rest of the season, so they didn't want it to be like, they didn't want to probably dwell on the Gideon part too much, like not being able to save him because of people like us who would bring up points like this, because they knew that Gideon probably could have saved him, or some kind of tech
Yeah.
that they had on the ship could have probably saved him or patched him up somehow, because he was still alive when they brought him back. There's no reason
Yeah.
that he would have just died there. No one could have done any kind of surgery or any kind of bioengineering on him or anything like that to save his life. Like that's a little far fetched for a show that has basically the tech for any kind of problem every single episode.
I know, right?
Or for a bunch of shows that do. Like literally every show on the Arrowverse has the exact thing they need every single episode, every single time, to fight any kind
And
of power.
if they don't, they'll just figure it out.
Yeah, if they don't, they bring in someone else to help them from another show, or they figure out something supernatural and get super lucky with it. But I think this time they just wanted to kill somebody without that being the case. And
Hmm.
if they would explain it, I feel like their explanation would probably be something along the lines of he's really old, and he was hurt pretty fucking badly. Not like someone who was a lot younger with a much healthier body like Sarah Lance, and Lesnar spit fuckery here and there. No,
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what happens with next year's crossover because like we've done aliens and Nazis at this point.
Nazi slash injustice in a way.
From there.
Like that was kind
Oh,
of
okay. They do. There's no way they would actually do that, but if they do, I will basically just mail them my credit card number and
no.
all
I
of the
mean
information.
what they did. I mean they wouldn't do if they did full blown injustice. I would cry, man. That would be the best. Tears of joy, not not like signs. No,
Yeah.
not like sadness. I would be so happy. That would be like the best thing they could do for ratings, for fans, for casuals, for everybody. Like everyone would tune in and watch that shit, no matter if they watch the shows or not. That would be amazing. But they
Yeah.
kind of did an injustice plot this year with the whole evil versions of our superheroes taking over, being tyrannical. It was kind of there. It was kind of there. It wasn't like
Kind of.
Superman's version of injustice. It was more like Green Arrow's version of injustice, which
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
cool. Like he was still like a tyrannical leader. He still killed and had his minions kill themselves if they were captured. Like with the biggest surprise that we didn't talk about, the biggest surprise of the whole crossover was Tommy. He was Prometheus of Earth X, which is funny
Yeah.
because he was theorized to be Prometheus of our Earth last season for Arrow. Like that was one of the theories, is that Tommy is Prometheus, brought back by the Lazarus
probably why
pit
they
or
didn't.
something like that.
Yeah. That's probably why they didn't Prometheus of this season.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably why they did. Yeah, that's probably why they did him as the Prometheus of Earth X, which was cool. Like they're like, "Heh, we see the theories you guys have. Here it is. Boom." That was nice. I really
Let's roll
enjoyed
with
them
it.
doing that. Um, yeah, like that was a nice touch. That was a nice touch, and I thought that he would
That was
play a
it.
bigger role in the whole thing and like kind of be
Yeah,
like a defector
it's
and
kind of a shame
stay.
they killed him off so fast.
Yeah, but in character, I guess that was appropriate. Like he wasn't like our Tommy. Like it wasn't. I would have found it weird if like he just suddenly found a nicer version of Oliver and was like, I like you more than evil Oliver, and I'm gonna be on your side now. Yeah, like that would have been weird. Like if he would have actually turned good.
That would have been way too weird.
Yeah, if he would have actually gone good just from one conversation with our Oliver, the whole
Yeah,
time I would have felt
it
like
would
there
be
was a backstab incoming.
Yeah, exactly. It's like either that or it points to a weakness of the character himself, which is just not something you want.
Exactly. So it is sad that they just brought him in, killed him off, but it was a nice touch to add, and it was in character, so nothing too bad there. Like that was nice, that was cool, and it was cool that they gave everyone like a moment to shine, pretty much. Like even Iris and Felicity had their kind of moment in when they were trying to save.
I would contend that because here's the thing. While Iris, well, here's the thing, the main focus of this season was on Arrow's side, Oliver and Felicity. With what's it called? Flash's side, you had Barry, Caitlin, Iris, and what's it called? Cisco. With Supergirl side, you had Kara and Alex, and with Legends, you had Sarah and Firestorm. Okay, those are the main characters. Everybody else didn't really get that much screen time, which is kind of fair because if you're gonna cram everybody in there, you won't have enough time for all the major stuff.
I'm just
Like
yeah.
like because if you look at the promotional artwork, for example, that notable artwork, what's it called, poster of what's it called, like that Silver Age comic, I think it was, where they had like, of course, of Earth X. I showed it to you.
What? Yeah. Yes, I remember.
Yeah, the one that showed like Crisis of Earth X, and then he had other characters on the
Right.
side. There was a lot of
Yeah, the
characters being included,
promotional.
like yeah, there were a lot of characters being included, like Zari, Heatwave, and Wild Dog, and Mr. Terrific, that didn't really show up that much in this crossover. They didn't play as much a role as the others did, or at
Yeah.
least they didn't get as much screen time. Again, it makes sense because you don't want to take out the time meant for emotional impact. Because I really like how they paced this. Like they had an introduction, they had the first episode, which is basically building up to the whole thing, and then you had the other three working on it. You had the two episodes in the middle, which is basically the main body, and you had the fourth part, which is concluding everything. Makes sense.
Right. Well, speaking of which, um, did you find it weird that not all of Team Arrow and not all of the Legends were invited to the wedding? Like that was
Depends.
something weird for me. Like Ray
Like who else?
Palmer, like Diggle, like
Well, I think they were there. They just didn't do anything.
no, they
Like,
weren't
you
there
probably didn't see
because
them.
no, because they had to call them in later to help them with the Nazis. They had to call in Ray
Uh,
Palmer and the rest of the legends later to help them with the Nazis. They had to call in
the
they had to call
I'm
in the
guessing.
rest of Team Era
Yeah,
to help them with the Nazis. Like they weren't there. Like they had to like
yeah.
send them
But in,
distress signals.
that's fair. But in Team Arrow's case, they didn't know Barry that well. And
I
what's it called? And
guess.
in Legend's case, half the team was solving a mission in the Stone Age, anyways.
What mission in the Stone Age?
That was their excuse basically. They said,
Oh,
well, they literally said that half the team is on a mission to the Stone Age.
oh yeah. They. Oh, I must have missed that. I must have missed that line there. So they were solving an anachronism. Okay.
Yeah,
I just yeah.
that's why the legends showed up later on in the crossover
Right.
at the last second.
Yeah, they showed up to help when Supergirl was literally right about to get cut open.
Yeah, I find it very interesting that Ralph wasn't there.
Oh yeah, where the hell was Ralph? He wasn't even there at all. Not even mentioned.
I
They didn't even
I
mention
I,
his name.
I'm guessing those like powers of his would have been very helpful at some point, but I don't know. I guess that's
Extremely
why they wrote him
helpful.
out.
It would have been extremely helpful, but also it would have been a lot of special effects. So I think they were like, too many heroes with crazy super effect powers.
Yeah,
crazy
yeah, we
super
already
special effect
there's
powers.
already enough. There's already more than enough.
And I feel like they wanted to focus on Ray more than another new character, because Ralph is a new character, and they wanted to introduce another new character, which was Ray, which was cool.
Hmm.
I liked his introduction, and that he has a relationship with Earth X Leonard Snart, who is
Which is,
staying. I'm so happy that he's staying.
yeah, I think he's gonna join the Legends.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's gonna go on the Legends show because there's not really room for him on the other shows, and he fits best on the Legends anyway. To kind of be
Hmm.
like, that's so funny. He's like complete opposite of Captain Cold because he's Citizen Cold
Yeah.
technically. He's the complete opposite. He's like the good version of him, which is hilarious.
Hmm.
Like his conversation with Mick and all, just his interactions with all the characters, just everything he said was the exact opposite of what they expected and of what we expected as fans, which was amazing. It
Hmm.
was hilarious. I loved that. I loved his coming back, like, just his comeback and um just everything about his return was great.
Hmm.
And I'm just excited to see him more on Legends because he's one of my favorite characters in the Arrowverse. And
Yeah, yeah. What's it called? What's the name of the actor again? I'm very bad at this.
I'm bad with actor names, so yeah, I might just
Wentworth Miller. Wentworth Miller plays him very well. You know, he's apparently part Lebanese, part Syrian.
Yeah, yeah, I heard he was part Arab, like vaguely Arab. I don't know specifically Lebanese or Syrian. That's really cool.
I don't know if it's Arab. I think it's more Assyrian, but I'm not sure.
Oh, right, right. Well, Middle Eastern.
Yeah,
That's what I meant.
yeah,
We just call the whole region Arab.
yeah.
All of you.
Uh,
No, but um,
what else? What else? What other comments could we have?
we're mostly focusing on the good right now. Good
Mhm,
was yeah. Before we get into like really heavy nitpicky stuff, which was a lot.
mhm.
um. Oh yeah, they brought back Red Tornado, which was pretty cool. He didn't really do
Yeah,
much.
they brought in Red Tornado. They didn't bring him back because he was never there in the first place.
He was there in season 1 of Supergirl.
Really?
Yeah, Red Tornado was in
Where?
season 1 of Supergirl.
I do not remember that. Well,
Yeah,
that's probably because it was season one. It was a long time ago.
and they brought back Metallo from season 2 of Supergirl.
Yeah, but this time they did Metallo properly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They did him like an actual menace, and like they had him do some damage. You know.
They had him actually like wreck the heroes, which was pretty
Yeah.
cool. Because it was like they were pretty evenly matched. Then they busted up Metallo, Kryptonite. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, knocked out the heavy hitter, and the rest is history, literally.
Yeah, and I liked how they still continued Supergirl's theme of being human and all that stuff because um, her confronting herself, like her evil self, kind of helped her with some of her own inner demons. I
Hmm.
feel like, and then also helped show other Kara that like we're humans too, just like all these other humans. Like you're dying, and I can be cut under certain conditions because I'm entirely a god, even though she kind of is. So I think it was cool, like that they were showing that even the strongest characters on these two Earths, which are Supergirls, obviously, they were both still vulnerable to certain weaknesses, and that the story kind of
I found.
revolved around their weaknesses as as these really strong characters and really
Yeah.
powerful heroes and villains, but they still had their weaknesses, which was the main focus of the story on kind of on either side,
Speak,
which was pretty cool.
speaking of weaknesses, I find it very interesting that the Nazis had such an emphasis on love is weakness, and yet the whole point of this episode was because, what's it called? Nazi Oliver, who is married to Nazi Kara, wants to
Yeah,
save her.
yeah, like his love for her is what's trying to save her, but love is weakness. I was like, okay.
Mhm. Yeah,
But it
it's kind
was
of hypocritical, but I think that it still makes sense in a way. It's the kind of hypocrisy that makes sense.
exactly like it's the kind of thing where like do as I say, not as I do. It's like I say love is weakness, but it's not weakness for me because I'm too strong for that shit.
Exactly.
It was that kind of thing, which they did play out pretty well, and it kind of fit into their characters of the Nazi versions of Oliver and Kara, which
Hmm.
helped make the theme really strong. Like yeah, I think I really agree with you when you said it was a lot more personal, the story and just the character development, character building, not world
Yeah,
building,
like
character
let's
building.
be
For this was better.
yeah, let's be real. Last crossover was basically more of an Arrow trip than anything else. It was basically just setting up for an Arrow thing. But what's it called? This crossover was involving everybody.
Yeah, it was pretty equal. I think they got complaints last year that it was too heavily focused on certain characters and on certain aspects of certain shows. Like obviously the
Hmm.
Arrow episode was just full on Arrow, but that's because it was the 100th episode. Like that's fair.
Yeah, it
That's
makes sense
completely
in
fair.
context.
Yeah. But this year, since it wasn't anything special like that that they had to account for, I don't think any other episode hit 100 episodes this year because none of them are on season 5. Um,
Hmm.
because that's when they would technically hit 100 episodes. Maybe a little bit later for Legends because they had less episodes in the beginning. But anyway, regardless, um, they did make it more equal for everybody this year. And yeah, just having 4 episodes of it instead of 3 just made it so much better because that was an extra entire 42 minutes of just content, which was just it was great. Like
Yeah, like I'm
when you
not
watch it all
complaining.
together, when you watch it all in one sitting, it's like a movie. Basically, it's like you're watching a movie, a
Yeah,
Justice League.
exactly.
You like it's almost like watching a Justice League movie, which we're not gonna compare it too much to Justice League right now or to anything
Well,
like that because
honestly, I liked it like more than I enjoyed it more than Justice League movie, which is kind of unfair because I'm more emotionally attached to these characters than to the Justice League characters.
and that's the thing
So
too. And that's the thing, like not to get too much into the Justice League movie because I haven't seen it yet, but also like it's not the point of the video. But that's another thing is what I would think would make this better than the Justice League movie is that Justice League kind of jumped into Justice League. They had like what, one movie for Superman, one movie for the new Batman with the new Superman, and they introduced
and
Wonder Woman
the
in it, and then one
a
Wonder
Suicide
Woman
Squad movie
movie.
that doesn't count.
Yeah, Suicide Squad that doesn't even. No one gives a shit about that. It wasn't involved in the in Justice League. It doesn't count. Pretty sure the studios are trying to forget it even happened. Not to dwell too heavily on this topic right now, but yeah, the reason that I feel like this would be better than Justice League is just because like you said, we're more attached to these characters emotionally, and that's something that even Marvel did better, obviously, with the reveal of Infinity War, and that's why everyone's so hyped for it. Is because that it's been 10 years of world building and 10 years of character building, as opposed to as opposed to DC's like 2 or 3 years of barely doing
Yeah,
anything to
we're not
touch.
gonna discuss this. Yeah, we're not gonna discuss the Infinity War trailer as much as we want to
Oh yeah,
because
that's another
well,
video.
it'll take another video of just
Yeah.
us screaming.
Yeah, of us just fangasming all over it. That's another video, but yeah, which we should do. But that's the thing that was I feel like would have made Justice League a lot stronger and maybe have it compete with the crossover, is that if they would have had more emotionally, um, like just more emotion built up for their characters, just like things to help us relate more to the characters. Like nobody's seen the Flash or Aquaman or Cyborg in any other movie before, so it's like they're just brand new characters they just brought in that we don't know much about, like barely know anything about from any of the other movies. And
Mhm.
yeah, but for the crossover, we know everything about these characters. We've been with
We know their experiences, so we understand when things happen to them. Like, that's I get the significance of this is because this happened to them and stuff like that.
exactly, and you get the significance of certain relationships and of certain things they say to other people and like certain interactions because we've been with characters like Oliver Queen for like goddamn like 5 years.
Mhm.
You know, Barry Allen basically 3.5 years because he was
I
kind of on
wonder.
Arrow.
I wonder what his reaction would be if we went up to him like before the boat trip and said, "You're going to be fighting Nazis on an alternate from an alternate world, surrounded by people like an alien that's practically invincible, two people that can become one burning person, and a guy who runs really fast."
Right? Oh, and you're gonna be fighting the Nazi version of yourself.
Yeah, he'd probably tell you to stuff it.
Like, yeah, sure, buddy. Okay, go lay down. You're drunk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, whatever booze you're on, please let me have some. I need it for this boat trip.
Yeah, the boat trip that's gonna go terribly, terribly wrong.
Hmm.
But
All right, this is when we go into. All right, we got nothing else to say good about this show, which probably speaks to how good it was in a way, or to how bad, depending on your perspective. But we thought it was really good.
oh
This
yeah,
is the part where we go into like the stuff that we're not so sure about, and here's where we throw in the complaints, basically.
right. But
And
before
it's
we
probably gonna
do,
be a lot.
yeah, yeah. But before we get into nitpicking and complaining about certain things we didn't like, just for full disclosure, both of us really enjoyed the crossover. We both really liked it overall. I mean, at least for me personally speaking, I really liked it overall. My overall opinion on it is that it was good. They did well, and they did better than last year. And yeah, nitpicking doesn't mean that we thought it was bad. We just have criticisms that we would like to hopefully address with you
Address.
guys. Yeah, hopefully address with you guys here in the comment section. You know, tell us if you agree or disagree with our criticisms or of our praises. And yeah, hopefully that gets some cool discussions going about what could be
Yeah.
done to improve the show and everything. But that said, let's get into let's get into the nitpicks. Let's get into it. Do you want to start or should I?
You start.
All right. So my
Because I got a lot of nitpicks,
yeah.
particularly about world building. You know me.
Oh yeah, you're the political science guy, so you're gonna be nitpicking the history and world building
Political
and shit.
science, history, thing is, I will be nitpicking while saying this is okay, this is okay, this is alright, this is not big of a deal, etc., etc.
Right. But for me personally, my biggest nitpick, and it's just something that happens in the whole show, so it's not really something that I'm too upset about. It's just when guns are involved in fight scenes on the CW, I'm never really worried because like guns don't mean shit on the CW. Like no one's ever gonna get shot or killed, especially on like our side.
Except for Stein of all
Except the
people.
one person who happened to have decent aim to shoot Stein in the back and then in the side somehow. But
Yeah, I
literally,
mean, like,
there were
I mean, like,
points. Yeah,
like if you pay attention to the symbols, it's all SS. The SS are like, okay, maybe in the beginning of the war they weren't the most elite fighting force, but midway through World War II at least they were. Not only were they the most best trained, they had the best weapons, they had the best equipment, they had the best what's it called, mentality too for fighting. These guys were actual blood knights. Whenever Allied forces would find out that they're up against SS, they'd mentally prepare themselves because they're up for a very serious fight against the most fanatical soldiers the Nazis could throw at them. So I find it hard to believe that they're a threat if this is their aim.
bro. There were points where they were literally shooting point blank at people and completely missing. Like at the wedding, they were shooting people point
There,
blank and missing.
there
I'm
were
like, what
so
is happening? Like, don't make them shoot if they're gonna miss. Just have them get in a fist fight.
there were so many opportunities for them to actually use guns, but they didn't. That's just as bad.
Yeah, there were so many just so many like bad scenes, like so many bad parts in the fight scenes that you can just tell they didn't have time to reshoot or really refine that well because they were shooting a lot. Like they're shooting the crossover while still shooting other episodes and all this stuff. Like they don't have infinite time, which is understandable, and they also don't have infinite budget, which is also understandable
Mm.
because it's a TV show. It's not a budget of a movie.
Yeah.
and they also don't have infinite leeway with who they can kill and throw off the show or whatever. Like Barry doesn't
Yeah.
have the privilege of being able to go back in time and save someone from dying. That's
Mhm.
something that we've already established at this point in the shows that he cannot do
It,
anymore.
yeah.
Like
It's probably not a good idea.
that is off limits for him to go back in time to save anybody. Like they couldn't kill Oliver Queen then have Barry go back in time and save him or something. They couldn't kill Sarah Lance and do that. So it's just so many points in the fight scenes where it's just like, did they really just miss all of those shots on those people standing 2 feet in front of them? Like it just like, I understand like they're not supposed to kill them. You're not, they weren't supposed to. Like they're not gonna kill
I don't
them,
want them to die. I don't want them to die. I want them to feel that there is an actual threat and that they could die at some point.
right?
Hanging the sword of Damocles above your head is much more of an effect than having it actually fall.
Right. Like there was no threat in any of the fights. Like sure, maybe um, there was tension, but then like it was only because the scenes were intense and they were like pretty. The scenes were tense, and that's the only reason there were tension. But when you think about it, when you just like step back and you're like, why was I so tensed up? No one was gonna die. I know no one's gonna
Hmm.
die, and I know they were not gonna kill anybody except Martin Stein. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
But they, you know, that's just another thing, is like they're creating fake tension in the show, and which is fine. Like I don't mind them creating fake tension just for the scenes to be more intense and no one ends up dying. But like when you have, like you said, the most elite Nazi force like the SS going up against basically humans, most of the like Arrowverse characters are just humans. The only ones who are
Yeah.
gods who we can see them never touching is Barry Allen and Supergirl,
Hmm.
and maybe
Hmm.
Firestorm. When he's actually Firestorm and not an old man and a young boy just separated. When he's actually Firestorm, and a couple of the other like people like I don't know, like Ray Palmer would be one that would also be kind of hard to kill because of his suit and whatever. But everyone else like Oliver Queen, Sarah Lance, Alex Danvers, out of all people, like she should have been at least shot one time from just the fights that she was in. Just her
Hmm.
scenes that she was in. She should have at least been shot once. And
Minimum.
yeah, but it's just like no one
Not
ever
because
got
we don't like the character, but because it would add a sense of realism.
right. And it's not, yeah, exactly. Like like I said before, like I didn't like last season of Supergirl, and especially I didn't like the character of Alex because of how she acted last season. But this season, I love her, and I love Supergirl, and I love Alex Danvers. So it's not something of me like, oh, I hope she gets shot. But yeah, like at least to add some kind of realism, like someone gets shot and injured or something like that. But like it's just completely missing shots everywhere, left and right, which just kind of broke immersion. Which I don't really like to
Hmm.
use that term a lot because that term gets overused and thrown around. But it just kind of like took you out of the episode. Like, oh, no one's actually getting shot. It's all good. there,
Yeah, like
there,
there's no sense of imminent danger.
right.
Okay.
Um,
Like this is where I start going into more details about what the issues.
Go ahead.
They're also they're shit at shooting. They're also shit at planning. What on earth kind of invasion plan is that? That is the stupidest invasion plan, the stupidest tactics I've ever seen used. Hollywood tactics, basically. Like
Basically,
up until a certain point, it was basically Hollywood tactics, and then they got a bit dangerous, and then they went back to being Hollywood. I'm just like, this is not how militaries operate. If the Nazis conquered the world using these tactics, then I already have no hope for whoever was fighting them in the first place.
oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I agree.
and
Yeah.
here's and this leads up to another to my next point, which is probably a very controversial point, but don't take this out of context, okay?
Sure.
Assume that this is Nazi conquered world, okay, and that they have been implementing the final solution for a very long time. They have been notoriously inefficient at it,
Yeah.
which doesn't make sense. Like, I hate to draw this kind of comparison because it's a very unfair comparison, but in the world of the Nazi world, not Nazi Axis, by the way, because there was also Japan and Italy and Finland, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, and all the collaborators of the other countries. But let's not get into that yet.
Right.
Who have conquered the world. In the Axis conquered world, the final solution was horrifically effective. Like, it's not just Jews that ended up dying; it's the Jews. The African populations were extinguished.
The
I have no idea what
homosexuals.
happened.
The homosexuals,
homosexuals,
yeah.
the Arabs. Not just that, anybody with physical disabilities
Right,
was basically euthanized, and it's a plot point later on. Don't want to spoil much, but like it was that effective. Like any trace of these peoples has practically gone completely underground.
right.
So to still see concentration camps brings up some big questions as to who's running this operation. I mean,
Yeah, it
or
was weird
as
that there was still concentration camps like what, 60 years after the war? Like how are
yeah,
there still people like that being born if they have taken over the entire world?
I know that's the big question now. Maybe you could. I have no idea how you could justify that point, anyways. Because assume that maybe somebody was sabotaging it on the inside. The Nazis would have caught up eventually. Because if they didn't, then they wouldn't be ruling the world in the first place. They'd have lost everything because of incompetence.
I guess you could do
So
the counter argument for just for the sake of counter arguing is that there was the resistance which had Ray, who was said to be recently captured, and
yeah,
had Leonard Snart, and obviously like Win and all of the rebel forces, like there was a resistance going on for the
which is
longest
very
time.
fair.
So I guess
Which
that
is
would
very
be
fair.
kind of like the counter argument to that like how come they haven't extinguished all, quote, imperfect beings on this world yet, is obviously because of something like that.
Yeah, but what would the resistance have been able to do? The thing about resistance is that if
Uh,
it's taken the form of an army who could actually do damage, the Nazis would have focused even more on them and gotten rid of them. Because
yeah,
that's the thing. Like, if you're either so strong, you attract attention, get destroyed, or you're so weak, nobody considers you a threat anyways, and the plan goes as normal. Or another thing, and this is a bit nitpicky, very nitpicky, but the weapons that they're using doesn't make sense. It's very outdated.
yeah,
Like again, in the Man in the High Castle, the Germans practically invented modern stage weapons during the six. Okay, well, not modern stage weapons during the 60s. Basically, like weapons that were developed in the 70s were being used in the 60s. Okay, that would kind of make sense because technology marches on. In this case, it seems like the world came to a complete standstill, which doesn't make any sense because like barring all the bad stuff the Nazis did, they practically invented the rocket technology, helicopter technology, jet engine technology, jet fighter technology. They spearheaded a lot of developments, and not only like weapons. Like the most important invention in the war wasn't even a weapon. It was basically a new way of packaging food. But it was so efficient that they actually destroyed the secret to make sure that nobody else would know.
that's crazy.
It, hey, yeah, but that's the thing about technology. Like you have to factor in these kinds of things. So when you're fighting in the 21st century with a weapon from the 1940s with a scope on top, it's something you would see in Syria. It's not something you would see here.
Right, I feel like they didn't really think about a lot of that stuff when they were making this. They just said, oh, let's have a story where the Nazis win the war, and then 60 years later, we pick up from there. Because they wanted to have
Yeah,
our
exactly.
characters, our people involved in it, which is something I was talking to you about. Just like, it's very convenient that all these other Earths that they have, in the finite multiverse of the Arrowverse. It's not like Rick and Morty where they have infinite universes with infinite possibilities. It's just convenient that the finite universe they have of 53 Earths, at least the ones we've seen so far, happen to have present day versions of the same exact characters, the same exact people, but with different backgrounds and different things that happen in the background of that Earth. Like if the Nazis really did take over the world, none of us today would exist because none of the course of history would have gone the same way.
The
And
thing
most of us
is,
probably wouldn't have existed today. Like even the Arrowverse characters probably wouldn't exist
that,
if
that that's true, but that's true. But consider that it's still possible for the events to happen, but in a different way.
I mean,
Like
yeah, that's what the show wants us to do.
let's say that the Nazis invaded America, but Oliver's ascendants were still alive, and they still went through the progression where Oliver Queen came to be born. Except this time, instead of being born in America, it would be born in the Nazi world.
But then he never became the Green Arrow because he would have had to do the Lee and Yu stuff. He would have, to be able to
That's
match to
true.
be able to match our arrow, because he said he
That's
matched
true.
me blow for blow and arrow for arrow and everything. Like, he was basically like fighting himself. So for him
That
to
is
be
very
an
true.
exact copy of our Oliver, he had to have gone through the exact same experiences, have the exact same trauma, have the
Not necessarily.
well, I
Not
mean, at
necessarily.
least have the exact same training from the same people, which wouldn't. It's just not
Which would
feasible.
make it actually makes more sense than you think because Oliver, being the son of Robert, who was a multi-billionaire running companies, practically an oligarch, it would make sense for him to basically be enrolled into the higher ranks of the Nazis, but this is something that I'm gonna get to in a bit, which is something that doesn't add up here, which I'll get to. But it
Right.
would kind of make sense
I
for Oliver to be recruited and basically become an elite soldier in the ranks of the Nazis, and the fact that Tommy Merlin, being his best friend, would also join up would also make sense. The question that I've just realized right now is where was Malcolm Merlin in this situation? Probably
Yeah.
killed. I don't know.
Right. Like there's a lot of. Well, I mean, it makes sense if you make it make sense. Like if you want to think about it in a way that's it's just conveniently that's how it happened.
Yeah,
It,
but we don't have much choice except to go with that.
no, I know. I'm not saying that. Yeah, I mean, I understand that and I accepted it. I'm just saying like it's just like the how they have set up these alternate Earths and how they do certain events like this. It's just something that if you really think about it, it doesn't make sense at all. How it's just
Hmm.
being how it's just super conveniently like they are in America. You know how it's just super conveniently that like even with the Nazis taking over America and doing all this other stuff, Supergirl still lands on Earth, somehow becomes a Nazi.
No, but
Somehow
she lands in Nazi Germany.
is that what they said happened?
Yes, they did.
Well, still, you know, still just her the fact that she even landed on Earth at the same time because on our, or not our, in her Earth, what happened was that she got blown off course. You know the whole story of Supergirl. She got blown off course for a while, came back. You know, like she didn't age while she was blown off course, like where she was. She came back on Earth. She was supposed to be older than Superman, but he's older. Blah 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 blah. The whole backstory of her. It's just really convenient that the same thing
Yeah,
happened
but
again on this other
to
Earth, but she landed
to,
different. She landed somewhere different.
to
But
be
this,
fair, it's not as crazy as you think it is, because this was kind of the subject of a Superman comic, except it wasn't Nazi Germany, or maybe there was at one point where they did do where he landed in Nazi Germany. I'm not sure, but there was a comic where he landed in Soviet
in
Russia
Soviet
instead
Russia,
of
yeah,
America.
yeah, I know of that
So,
comic.
it's not that nonsensical.
I'm just saying it's just too convenient some of the things that they've set up in these Earths, and it brings back the point that you said that it seems like everything's just been at a standstill since World War II, technologically and like
Hmm.
everything wise, until they got up to our point in time, to where the heroes that we have can be born and become villains. It seems like
Hmm.
everything just kind of stopped. Or I mean, honestly, maybe even Reverse Flash went back in time and made sure things happened to them that would have still brought them onto this path. I mean, he could have been
Honest, yeah.
like that could be
If we
another
don't,
explanation that we could bring up to like kind of give the show the benefit of the doubt in this case. Like he's the one that orchestrated the Germans winning, so it's not really mind blowing to think that he would have been the one who made sure that
that,
Oliver Queen
that
and
was one of
Kara
the
still went on their
that
paths that led them to that point. You know what I mean?
that's one of the things I was going to talk about at some point. That thing is, World War II is one of the most, one of the best places to do alternate history on, aside from the Cold War, because it's probably just that fun. Now, despite this, in real life, there actually have been so many re-studying of how things could have gone during World War II, and the ultimate conclusion was that it could not have gone any other way. For example, one of the most popular alternate history concepts for World War II is the Germans succeeding in invading Britain.
Okay.
With the benefit of hindsight, we now know that it was practically impossible, because for a multitude of reasons that I won't get into. Okay, we're just gonna say it's impossible. The same thing could be said for the Germans' atomic program. It would not have been able to supersede the Allies because A, the Germans made the very serious mistake of kicking out all their smart scientists who happened to be Jewish, including Albert Einstein, and B, there were so many different groups working on the project at the same time that there was a sort of rivalry, and C, the Allies did a very good job of sabotaging their operations, particularly in Norway. Now, what this brings me to is it's very likely that Reverse Flash could have helped them construct the bomb earlier, and it would have been nice if the Earth X Reverse Flash showed up with those guys and he was the one responsible for it happening. That could have been a lot stronger.
Right.
But the fact that they have to use Earth 1 Reverse Flash maybe works a little more on the emotional impact, but not so much on the logical one.
Right. It's more of a fan service thing.
Exactly. More than anything else, it's practically fan servicing. Which leads me to a point. Paris getting. They mentioned at one point that this is extremely nitpicky, but again, I gotta bring this out.
Right.
They mentioned that New York, Moscow, Paris, and London were nuked. Okay, barring the fact that you need to nuke a lot more cities, why would they nuke Paris if they're already occupying the city? It's incredibly stupid for you to nuke a city that you're already occupying.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. And you can't say that they what's it called? They didn't conquer France by the time they developed the bomb. Like Germany practically conquered France, Luxembourg, Belgium, what's it called? The Netherlands, uh, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Denmark, and Norway in the span of about like 2 years. Okay, maybe not Czechoslovakia, but 2 years. Okay, that was from 1939 to 1940. Those were the countries under German control. Everything about the atomic operation would have happened afterwards, maybe in 42 or 43. It would make sense for the other three cities to be nuked, except maybe Washington D.C. That's more important, I would say. But okay, but Paris doesn't make sense.
Maybe they just got bored of it. They just fuck this place. Let's leave and nuke it.
Probably, and also Hitler died a little bit too late. 1994 is way too late for a guy who was probably developing Parkinson's disease. Again, we'll let that slide. Other issues involving the Nazis. What exactly is Oliver the Führer?
Yeah.
This is
I don't think they explained that at all.
I can understand if they're not using German or there aren't any Germans because we're fighting American Nazis. Okay, this is America occupied by the Nazis and has been molded into Nazi society, which is kind of sad that there was no Germans involved. But considering how previous attempts at German accents haven't really blown our socks off. Apparently, they didn't consider it this time, which is fine. But at
Right.
least Kara should be able to speak German because she was born in Germany, not born. She crashed in Germany. She was brought
Right.
up in the actual German fatherland, so it doesn't make sense. Now, Oliver maybe could be Führer of the American Nazis, but again, there's a lot of questions involving that. Like Kara is general. General of what? Does she even have officer training? That doesn't make sense. They have never elaborated on this, and every time they say general, I'm like, a general is somebody who sits in a camp and directs soldiers to go everywhere. I have not seen Kara do this.
Maybe they're just giving them big ranks because they're the important characters, but they didn't really want them to do those jobs
Maybe.
because that would have been boring for us to watch just her just telling people to go do shit when she's a god and can go do it herself.
Yeah, and like what's it called thing? You know how I have this very serious allergy to tell and not show because
Right.
the show did a very egregious example of it when they were talking about how dangerous the Nazis were, especially at that warehouse. They're like, oh, there are like 150 tanks and 50 soldiers, which doesn't make any sense, and they never
Yeah.
showed any tanks anyways.
I don't think they showed
So
any
it's
tanks. Yeah, that's right.
they didn't show any tanks. They showed some like armored vehicles with guns on it, but they didn't show any tanks. Which
Rest in
is like,
peace.
I know I like tanks, and I know that we don't need to blow our budget on tanks, but don't talk about the threat if you're not gonna show it.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing they like to do a lot on these shows. Just kind of like you said, just tell not show, which is kind of annoying sometimes. But
It's incredibly annoying.
I would have liked to
It's not
see some
just
tanks too. That's
yeah, but again, it would be just a bit too much. I mean, like we already it just show how the soldiers are dangerous, you
They
know.
don't even have to have real tanks. They could have just made some computer models and just throw them under. They don't even have to make
Yeah,
them.
but
Just rip some from World of Tanks.
yeah, but wouldn't you want to have like I don't know, get the rights for them or something?
I mean, yeah, that was a joke. But um, I mean, yeah, it's still like not hard to have just done that and like just as like CGI tanks instead of real tanks. Um, if it was something that they really wanted to do and they talked about, I don't know, like I don't know why they didn't show that. That seemed like something that would have been really simple to show if they just put some computer models on there, even if they didn't want to buy a whole thing. Like,
Mhm.
you know, you don't want to
Exactly.
buy a tank.
Like
But
like a little bit more effort would have been nice. Also, I really don't like when they use medieval or 1700th century tactics of walking in a straight line for dramatic effect. I really don't like that. It really like it
what do
was
you
done
mean?
for such a dramatic like you know at the fourth episode when both armies are walking together. A, the Nazis could have just shot them where they were standing, and B, it's just really stupid. You don't march towards each other in a straight line. That's something that knights or lion men from the Enlightenment age would do. That's not something you do in like today's world. I know you're trying to do it for special, for like dramatic effect, but the Avengers did it in a very like, for example, the Avengers when they were showcasing in the first movie, when they were showing all the heroes coming together and the camera was showing all the heroes together standing together. That was a that was a better way of doing it. And this one, they just have the all the heroes walking towards the Nazis in like one line, which is really stupid.
Yeah. Well, no one was using their guns effectively anyway, so who cares? They said
Okay,
we have
fair
guns,
enough.
so let's go in a.
Fair enough. That's not a point in his favor, but fair
No,
enough.
I know. It's just like, what would have happened if they just stood behind cover? They would have just kept firing at each other for the rest of time, because no one would have hit
Yeah,
anybody.
that's I guess.
They had to go in and fist fight. But there was something we kind of forgot to mention when we were talking about the positives. We forgot to mention my probably my favorite ship in the whole Arrowverse right now, which is Sarah Lance and Alex Danvers.
Yeah, well,
I'm
sucks
all
that
for
it's
that.
not going to be developed further because you can't get farther apart from people anymore.
I know
Like
they're on two different Earths. Well, yeah,
one of them is on a different Earth, the other one is on the first Earth, but in a different time. Go
right. They're
figure.
they're traveling through time. I know. I like that. I like that temporary ship though, and like the interactions they had with each other. That was nice.
Yeah, it was an interaction that kind of built character.
Right.
It wasn't a ship for the sake of it, for like fan service. It was something that
Exactly.
made sense.
That's my favorite kinds of ships too, and it's something that's like it's good for character development and makes sense in the show. It's not just something that they shoehorned in there because fan service. It's like something they did for the sake of building on like giving character development for Alex for her thing with Maggie and giving because she just lost Maggie and all that
Yeah,
um and kind of helping her reaffirm her belief that she was right in what she did and her decision to go with her instinct and stick with her own convictions and stick with her own desire for the future that Maggie didn't share with her. And that's how it should be. Like, if you and your partner don't see eye to eye on things like that big, like having kids, then you shouldn't be together. And that's something that she had to like reaffirm into herself with this new
yeah,
experience that she had. Which I mean, it was cool. Like I like the way that they did it. Um, I liked how they did that. But one thing that was weird, it's like how come like people RSVP'd so late to their wedding? Like they were talking about in that like for Arrow for example, like they had Oliver Queen like in the middle of a fight the night before, and they were like, "Oh, we didn't RSVP to Barry's wedding." It's like what? Like that's just something small, but it just doesn't make sense like in real life. Like if your best friend was
yeah,
getting married, like you would RSVP the day you get the fucking wedding invitation. Like
exactly.
and like that just goes back to my point of like why weren't more people invited, but we already covered that. But like it's another thing. It's like it was just weird seeing them like scramble to RSVP in the last second right before the wedding. It was just like weird. It's like it was a funny
Yeah,
scene. It was a funny montage of scenes. But it was just like
I think the point of it was the hilarity more than
yeah,
anything else.
yeah. The point was the funnies, which was good, but it was just weird. It's like okay,
Yeah, I want to stop ramping on the Nazis because that's already more than enough.
right.
I want to talk about something else that really bothered me involving the main bad guys.
Go ahead.
I really don't like. I like how the what's it called? Evil Kara and Evil Oliver were very well rounded as characters, which makes the inclusion of a mustachio twirly shithead like Eobard Thawne feel really out of place. It was way too out of place to the point that it actually started becoming a bit distracting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
His
like they have actual motives. They have, they can as much as you'd probably hate them, you can actually still feel like some kind of emotional connection going on there that you can feel. With
right.
Eobard sitting there cackling maniacally with a slow clap and I'm like I'm gonna cut you up like a walnut or whatever. It's just like either have either have a well-rounded person or a Saturday morning cartoon villain. Don't try and have both at the same time because it just accentuates the issue here. It just erases the contrast and shows the difference between the two way too much.
Yeah, there was a huge contrast between how he was portrayed as a villain and the actual villains of this. Well, he was pretty much another actual villain of this because he's the one that set the entire thing in motion. But I think that was just him. That's just him as a character. He just likes to fuck with people. He's like, I'm just gonna fuck with
He's a troll.
the
He's a
entire
troll
existence.
practically.
He is.
He's a
He
troll.
is a trolly villain. Like Reverse Flash is a very trolly villain, and that's kind of how they portrayed him. And I mean, I guess in that sense they succeeded. But I definitely see a
Yeah, but
criticism. I definitely see the whole like contrast being kind of jarring between like these guys
it's
are
way
well
too jarring.
rounded, they have motivation, they're motivated by each other, they have like all this shit going on, they have a relationship, and then here's Reverse Flash being a troll, and then
Yeah, but he's reverse Flash being a twat, basically.
yeah, I mean that's just I can definitely see that, but yeah, that's just how his character is. It was pretty weird, but so here's something I'm not really sure how I feel about. How do you feel about the last scene in the crossover, the wedding, the actual
It, b- it was a
Diggle?
bit. It was a bit fast.
Well, I mean, of course, that's the point of the scene. It was being rushed for the point that like we tried to have a big wedding and a party and everything, and we did. We got everyone together. Went to shit. Mostly everyone survived and everything's okay for the most part except for Stein. So let's just get the official part out of the way. I feel like that was their point, but I don't know how I exactly feel about Felicity butting in and getting married to Oliver right there. I mean, it's cool that like Barry and Oliver like basically like uh,
Tied the
almost
knot.
almost best friends, you know, basically like got married together like right there, you know, like married their women like at the same time together. That was pretty cool. But like I feel like Felicity's whole weird arc in these 2 episodes of like, or 4 episodes, I guess, of like, I don't want to marry you, and then like kind of going from that to like, in another couple episodes, like marrying Oliver. I just feel like she's so all over the place, like with what she wants to do, which kind of is part of her
Yeah,
character. She's a bit of a spaz, but like, I don't know, man. I don't
like
dislike it.
I
I
can
don't
understand
dislike
that.
it, but I don't entirely
Yeah,
like it
I
either.
can understand that, but I can see how it would still work in this situation because
Yeah,
she rejected Oliver based on emotion at the very beginning, and
right.
then right after that, Oliver gets captured, and she freaks out because shit, it's the last thing I told him. What if it's the last thing I told him, and now I have to live with this forever?
Captured by
So
Nazis of all things, and
I
given
know, right? The people who tried to kill her in the first place,
given her
to kill her
heritage.
people.
Yeah,
So that probably was the driving factor towards, you know what? Let's just do it. You know, let's just do the whole marriage shit.
right. Yeah, and like I said, like like I don't dislike it.
Mm.
I don't dislike it, but it just seemed weird that she just like butt in at the end of that and like, you know, got married too. But I mean, it was cool. It was cool that they both just got married to their girls, like because of the whole beginning of the entire Arrowverse, at least with the Flash when Oliver was telling him like we're heroes, we don't get the girl, and then the beginning of the crossover, Barry was like, see, I got the girl, and you can get yours too. And then by the end of the crossover, they both got their girls, which was cool. You know, it was like a
Yeah,
combination of that entire side plot
yeah,
um,
exactly.
coming to fruition. Um, but yeah, I did like that a lot. I mean, like the whole crossover as a whole, I liked it. I had those were basically my issues with it. Just little nitpicks here and there, and of course your historical nitpicks.
Yeah,
And
I probably nitpicked a bit too much.
it's okay. That's what these videos
I'm
are
pretty
for.
sure the crowd got bored.
That's okay. That's what these discussions are for. But anyway, is there any other thing you want to discuss or talk about in the crossover? Any of the characters or anything else?
Involving the crossover. I find it very amusing how Barry reconned a place that had meta-human barriers and still made it back.
I think he just went like as far as he could go.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Also, what the shit is metal made of?
I don't know. Adamantium.
Adamantium. Like adamantium wouldn't have been enough either.
Right. Seriously.
It's insane. And when Nazi Kara dies, rest in peace, thoughts and prayers.
She
Um, uh,
blows the fuck up. Yeah.
yeah, when she blew up, it's just like Nazi Oliver's scream was just hysterical. It was just laughable.
Yeah.
That
It
was
was.
such a bad scream.
I feel like they needed to do another take on that.
I really think they should have.
Yeah, I feel like there might have been some radiation fallout too they didn't consider from her blowing up, but it's whatever. It's just more nitpicky details.
But this is something worth being nitpicky over because that was such a stupid scream.
Yeah. That
And
was.
wouldn't
It
that,
was worse than
yeah,
Darth Vader's no.
at least Darth Vader's no was memeable.
It was. This one, oh, come on. This has to be memeable too. This one is gonna get
This one
memed.
has potential, but it will
Has-
probably just be lame. It would fall out in like a week or so. One last comment that's more funny than anything else involving Earth X Rory's backstory,
Okay.
where he saved cops from burning buildings.
Oh my
Isn't it?
god, that was so funny. Yeah, yeah, he
That
did.
was funny, but if you think about it, he probably saved Nazi police officers.
Oh my
Which
god.
is, like the more you think about it, the more like, okay, why would Earth X Rory be considered a hero for that in the context of this episode, at least?
I mean, maybe they were rebel soldiers. Maybe they were rebel police.
Rebel police officers, you're either a Nazi police officer or you're not. I mean, like, this is Nazi America.
Right. Maybe it was before they completely were Nazi. Maybe there was like one town that had like normal police officers.
Which means they didn't conquer, which doesn't make any sense.
They had one town with normal police officers, and that's that's where he went and saved them.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
Like, the Nazis are like, nah, we'll just let this slide. We'll just let this town go. What could they do to us?
it's just Kent. They can't do shit there. They can't read Kent right. It's okay. We don't need them.
My god.
No, no disrespect to Kent. Maybe a little bit, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Shout outs to the Kent folk.
Hey, alright, so that was our long discussion on the Crisis on Earth X crossover. Thank you guys. If you made it this far in the video, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to our discussion and being here with us. And please leave a comment below on what you think of our pros and cons for these 4 episodes for the Crisis on Earth X crossover. Let us know what you thought about it and your favorite moments from it or your least favorite. And of course, don't forget to leave a like if you like this video and subscribe for more. This has been Zal from Geek Paradise Entertainment.
And this has been Bashar. It's been a pleasure having you guys.
Yes, pleasure having you, Bashar. Pleasure having everyone else. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
Peace.